Okay, welcome back to the Bootleg Corner Movie Review Hours, and we'll be going in the direction of the Marvel Cinematic Universe with Fantastic Four First Steps released earlier this year in 2025. And we'll be getting right into it, no preamble or suspense of any kind. And one of the first things I want to say about this movie that I noticed is the color grading and the themes. Now, the Fantastic Four First Steps movie was very blue, let's put it that way. The color grading and the themes were stuck heavily on the blues, and I liked that very much. That was very much representative of their color schemes, of their uniforms, of basically their vibe. It was very familiar. The dialogue was a lot more friendly, a lot more interactive. It gave all the four main characters some weight, led some credence to their believability, made them basically look and feel like a real family. I think that was one of the things they have over the other Fantastic Four movies, especially the ones that were made in 2005, and even worse for the ones that were made in 2015, because the 2015 one was it's not even worth talking about. But comparing this to the ones in 2005, those were very, very good movies, don't get me wrong, but I think this one had a lot more familiar feel around it, a lot more unity, basically a lot more cohesion around the family dynamics of this movie. And I think that was one of the major things, one of the major selling points of this movie, of this being an actual family. And it felt like one, it talks like one, it acted like one, and I think I bought that. They basically sold that part of the movie to me. I think that was very, very important. And another thing is the essence of these characters, their design, their actions, their capabilities, their movements, the essence of them being these characters: Reed Richards, Sue Storm, I can't even call these guys' name, but they basically felt and looked and acted like these characters, and they basically embodied the essence of what these characters were meant to be. And I think if the creators of these characters were looking at this movie right now, I think they'll be very impressed. And I think that's one of those things you can do with, one of the best things you can do with comic book characters. If the owners and the creators of those characters can look upon your work, and obviously they'll find some things to say after all. Nothing is without criticism. But if they can look at what you've created from the characters that they made, and they're impressed with it, like I am, and I think almost everyone was, I think that's a very good mark that's a very good mark in the books of this movie. Now, one thing is with the Susan Storm of this one and the Susan Storm of 2005, I think this one they went for a more motherly approach, a more mature, basically in 2005, Susan Storm was more like a video vixen, more of a sexy kind of girl. And I think if you look at the family dynamics, once again, of these two movies, I think the one in 2005, that was a very young family. Susan Storm and Reed Richards were newly married, so those guys were basically in the full bloom of youth, if you can put it that way. But in this one, these guys, the storyline is they've been together for a while, so you see that they've even been trying for a kid. So Reed Richards is almost like probably in his 40s. You can see he's having green hair and stuff like that. So like the dynamics are different because the time frame and the time, what do I even want to say here? The time frame and the circumstances around their situations are also equally different. Now, with Reed Richards in this one, I think one other thing we can notice is that his intelligence doesn't override the others. Now, they put him as he's basically the smartest man in the universe, or in this universe, as things are. But his intelligence doesn't override whatever other capabilities these other guys have. Because I think if you can look at the ones from 2005, Reed Richards almost often looked like the only intelligent man in the room, and he wasn't looking that intelligent basically. But in this one, he has the mannerisms and the setup and everything to look like the most intelligent man in the world and in the room at all times. But the other characters, they don't feel like rockheads basically. They don't leave him to solve everything on his own. They feel like they are part of the conversation. He doesn't feel like he's talking. How do I explain it? He doesn't feel like he's saying things above their pay grade. Like with his family, with Ben, with Sue, with Johnny, they feel like they are in this together. They feel like they know what they are talking about when they're talking about science, going to space, when they are trying to do things. They feel like it feels very natural to them compared to every other Fantastic Four movie. They feel like scientists basically. They don't feel like people who have no idea of what is going on and they're just leaving Reed Richards to do everything by himself. And I feel like that was a great point in this movie. Now, another thing is with Reed Richards in this one, kind of feels like he doesn't like using his powers. You see, he's like, the way he acts, the way he behaves when he has to use his powers, almost often it feels like an inconvenience to him to have to do things. Maybe that's just me reading his energy levels, or maybe that's just my perception of him basically. But with the other guys, their powers are basically like it's basically part of themselves. Johnny is usual, he's a young guy, he's messing around, he's always on the 100 his powers. Ben, he cannot escape his powers because his powers are basically just everything is made of right now. Susan Sue is basically, she uses her powers for like she's free with it. But with Richards, I don't think his powers feel like an inconvenience to him. That's my reading of the matter basically. Now the next thing is this: their universe feels a bit too dystopian. It feels like dystopia and utopia basically. It feels like dystopia in utopia because I think they've basically defeated almost all their enemies. There are no real threats going on, like we see in the backstory when they were fighting all the supervillains and stuff. But like there's nothing that really happens that could take away from the main events of like this movie. There is no other background threat. They are basically like emperors. They are basically like the most loved group in this universe, and that feels a little bit dystopian. Because normally when you see stories like this, when you now get to the background, you now find out that maybe these guys are despots or they are dictators or they are doing some very evil things in the background to make their public perception look like this. But with these guys, it seems there's some sort of universal love for them, even to the point where when Galactus finally approaches and enters the Earth, they can even talk to a supervillain to help them and keep all the citizens of New York, I think that was in New York, right, underground in his tunnels. So like it's a bit dystopian basically. They have basically created a dystopia that feels way too weird for someone who has been watching movies and who knows what human nature is like. It feels a bit off-putting that they are this widely accepted and this widely loved. That's just my take on the matter. As I said, with their world looking a bit and feeling a bit weird, they don't even really have any other villains that pop up, like, because when something like Galactus is coming, there should be some other background villains or something who basically are either worshipping or either in agreement with Galactus, who try to betray the Earth or something. Then, but apart from some of the citizens, these were normal citizens who were marching, saying that they were now followers of Galactus. There were no super villains on that type of timing. So I'm asking again, like, it was way too dystopian. The calmness, the peace was way too much. Like, where are the actual supervillains? And even with this Mole Man, I didn't really see what he was. I don't really know what he is. They just told us he digs underground tunnels and stuff. But he seemed like a normal guy. There's nothing on him. And I don't even like someone not familiar with the comics. Like personally, I'm not familiar with the Fantastic Four comics and stuff. I don't really know even if he has powers or he's using devices or something. He was like a very normal guy. He didn't really show us anything that he could do or anything that he has done. I don't think that was really shown in the flashbacks. Maybe I missed it. That's something I have to go back to and rewatch to see if there's anything there. But I don't really think he looks normal basically. He looks normal, and they don't really show us any other villains apart from this big guy they were fighting in their flashback. There are not really any other guys they can fight. Is their rogues gallery that small, or is their rogues gallery that weak? That these guys can basically create utopia without any pushback. Like it was way too easy basically, to put it that way. It was like they just hit these guys once and all of them just went to sleep. And none of them came out in the chaos from Galactus coming. Even when they were away from the Earth, there was no report of when they came back. There are some superheroes that are taking the advantage to do some crazy stuff. Everything was basically as they left it. So maybe this Earth is way like there's a different Earth basically, it's a different dimension and a different Earth. But everything was way too smooth and way too peaceful. And that's basically a reiteration of point one when I said they had created a dystopian utopia. And that's just how it is. Now, as I said earlier, with the characters, their design, their skill, their actions, Galactus, Silver Surfer, once again, impeccable work from the design, the VFX team, and everyone else who was involved in character design for this movie. Galactus looked the part, he acted the part, he felt the part. But again, one thing I felt with him was he had the skill, he had the size, he had the feel of Galactus, he had the look of Galactus, but there was something more. He lacked something else to give him, to punch that ticket of threat level. I think when they went into space the first time he spoke, I was expecting a lot more. I think that was Ralph Ineson, or I think it's Ineson, someone. But the guy who voiced the Galactus, basically his voice is very crazy, his voice is deep. So I think they should have added, this is my suggestion now, my criticism. The voice was okay, but I think there should have been a lot more special, something more special about him talking. Maybe the when he was talking, when the first time he spoke, I think it was in a machine, it was in a ship. The ship should have vibrated or something. There should have been a lot more. I don't know. Should have been something extra in him or about him when he talked to people. But his voice was just gravelly and deep and heavy. There was nothing else. There was nothing else backing up that threat level, and that's what I wanted to see. And I was disappointed. Basically, I liked the voice, but there should have been a lot more feeling, a lot more menace that could have been carried out with injecting something extra into the voice. And that's what I think was lacking from him, because every other thing was fine on the character design and the talking and every other thing skill, but I did not feel there was supposed to be some more menace in his voice, more threats, a lot more feeling about him basically. And you didn't really like. They were close, but I don't know why they did not really want to add anything extra. They were very, very close, but I think at the final hold they just left it. They didn't really put the extra. They didn't really season it extra. They should have added some extra seasoning to Galactus to make him feel more heavy. Basically, that's just make him feel more heavy. I did not feel his weight on screen was not up to par. His weight wasn't up to par. Now with Silver Surfer, played by Julia Garner, she was fantastic. All her scenes were majestic. All her scenes were impeccable. Riding the waves, the black hole, following them through a wormhole. I mean, she was crazy powerful. And with her backstory, being from a normal planet and deciding to sacrifice her life to save her planet and becoming the herald for Galactus. Now, basically, like I said, I had no knowledge of Fantastic Four, their comics and their story and their lore. So basically, I even thought there was like a race of Silver Surfers that Galactus wiped out. But now we are finding out, according to this one, that Shalla-Bal was from a normal planet that Galactus was going to eat. And she decided to basically become a servant, going to other worlds, and like basically leading Galactus to the world is going to destroy. So I thought there was a race of Silver Surfers, but that has been disproved now. And with her redemption arc, I think again, there was something to be missed and something to be said about her, or scenes that we were missing about her contemplating. Even after Johnny had showed her everything, I replayed all the messages from her world and the world she had left behind and led Galactus to that killed billions of people. There should have been a scene of her in contemplation, in reflection, in basically in thought, maybe in regret or something, a private scene. It doesn't have to be too long, 1 or 2 minutes. Basically replaying everything, or basically having that acrimony within herself of everything that she's done. Because after Johnny told her that and she flew away, she just basically disappeared up until the ending of the movie. And he felt a bit, but they didn't really pursue her story to the fullest. That's what I felt. They did not really pursue her story to the fullest. Now with everything, trying to use Franklin as a last resort to get Galactus to come up until the building and send him away from Earth to a different void at the end of the galaxy. Now again with the Galactus, I thought when he came to Earth and he saw, okay, they were sacrificing the kid, okay, good and fine. Then when he now finally comes and gets to the spot and no longer sees the kid, at that point I expect him to react differently. True, he changes course and goes directly for the kid if they are going to play games with him. But when he now sees that these guys are trying to basically not give him the kid, trying to play him around, his course of action should change. True, if he wants, it's not like he's even going to eat the kid. He wants the kid to take his place. It's not like the kid is even that. It's not like he wanted to eat the kid and the kid is important to his survival or something. He was basically going to retire in place for the kid to take his place as the Eater of Worlds. So when he sees that the Fantastic Four are now playing games with him and trying to fight him and stuff like that, I expected him to change tactics to like, okay, if you guys are going to play with me, I'm going to destroy your world basically. I'm going to destroy your world. I'm going to like turn this place into like hellfire for you people. And he didn't do any of that. He was just busy still fighting them, trying to take the kid. And it was a missed opportunity to me again. But I think the story of this movie is going to be missed opportunities, because there were so many points to do things differently. They had done things amazing up to an extent, and up to the point they wanted to like do just take the extra step. To just cross over, they just left it there and just did not do anything with it. Because every other thing, character design, dialogue, believability, plot setting, storyline, you've gotten everything basically. But that extra step to turn a good story into a great one,
turn a great story into an amazing one, to turn a very good movie into an amazing movie. I think that was the hurdle they could not jump. I think that was the hurdle they could not jump. They did things too safe. They did things up to an extent and then just cut it off from there. And that was basically the theme of this one. I think that was my major complaint from this one. They did things amazing up to an extent, then final hurdle, just say, okay, let's wrap it up here. Let's wrap it up here. As I said with this read earlier, as I said, he doesn't like using his powers. When Galactus was stretching him, now I know that was involuntary stretching, but again, that's the stretching, the stretch, the thing Galactus was doing to him at that point in time did not warrant him shouting, did not warrant that much of an effort from him, because he's much more flexible than that. Now, I don't want to be referencing a different movie with different powers or the same powers but different direction and everything. But like in Fantastic Four, I think Rise of the Silver Surfer, we can see when Reed Richards cut that Ferris wheel, and he stretched a lot more. Like it was a lot more effort to do that than in this one where Galactus was just stretch. I know it was involuntary. He didn't want to stretch, so he's basically going against his own. He's fighting against his own body. But like there should have been more. Basically, there should have been more. And like I said in this one, it felt like he did not like using his powers, and that was, again, doing amazing things up to an extent, and not crossing the bridge that will take it from amazing to like really, really amazing. Now with Sue, when she was using the force field to push Galactus backwards, and when Reed Richards said if she continued she was going to die, I thought there would be like some explanation or some action or some results from her doing that, basically, because she was pushing him with the force field. Reed Richards said if she continued, she was going to die, she was going to max out and die, and she continued doing that. There was like, I was now looking at her to see where is the strain coming from. He did not do anything like nosebleeds. There were no veins popping out. She wasn't drying up. She was basically just looking bruised up a little because of the time she had fallen on the floor. But if you are going to tell us that if this character continues doing this, then she's going to die because she's going to push past her limit, then let us see something that points towards that. I was at the least bit, I was expecting a nosebleed. Let it be like the least thing that can happen. Let us have a nosebleed. Let us see what happens when Sue pushes herself past her limits. But she was just basically straining and groaning and basically all the feels of tiredness and stuff, and just basically someone who's trying to push something. But there was no extra. She should have been a lot more banged up, a lot more distressed, there should have been a lot more going on around her, basically. And again, you do things to an amazing extent, time to punch the ticket, to cement your place, and they just do let's wrap it up, let's take it up from there. So her coming back to life, you can basically see how powerful Franklin is. And we know Franklin's powers is basically, I think, his ability to create multiverses and universes as well. And it seems he also has the power to revive his own mother from death. And I think that's a very powerful addition to their family and stuff like that. But now I think in Thunderbolts, at the end of Thunderbolts, we see the Fantastic Four, their spaceship coming towards Earth. And there was no explanation in this one to point towards them doing that. So I think them going to Earth in whatever timeline, I think that will be coming after Avengers Doomsday, or maybe Avengers Secret Wars. I don't know which one is coming out first, either Doomsday or Secret Wars. But there's nothing right now that points towards them teaming up with the Avengers. Basically, they solved everything in their timeline, in their time, in their world, and everything is back to normal. Another thing I want to ask again is, where is Galactus' ship? Because when he was coming to Earth, he was coming on a ship. Then he now finally arrived on Earth, he was sitting on a chair. So where is the ship? Because they did not mention it after they sent him packing from this Earth. So where is the ship? And what about the chair he was sitting on? Where is it? Because is the ship still parked outside the Earth, or was it the ship that transformed into the chair that he came in, that he jumped down from when he landed on the Earth? So like, I don't really know. The actors, the acting, this design, the characters, fantastic. But the plot left so many questions of where things could go. The direction left too many things up. We left too many things up to choice, too many things up to chance. That's basically my verdict on the matter. They took a movie that could have been amazing, that could have been more, and left it at just very good. They just made a very good movie. So, to that end, I think my rating of Fantastic Four, First Steps, what do I give it? I think that should be like just 7. I think that should be 7. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section. If you feel that way, if you feel it should be higher or lower, don't forget to subscribe, to like, to share, and all that stuff. Keep it locked in, and I'll be back.